Welcome to One Up Fantasy, helping you one up the fantasy football competition. For the latest in Chicago sports news, visit ChiCitySports.com. And now, here are the hosts of One Up Fantasy, Steven Johnson and Chris Jackle. Kaboom!
What is
Kaboom!
up? Welcome into another episode of One Up Fantasy here on Chi-City Sports and the Tape Never Lies Network. I'm Steven Johnson. He is Chris Jackle, and
yes, sir.
A lot to cover. There's been a couple bumps in the road with a couple different teams, and a very special episode, I should say, to kick things off here as we inch ever closer. The final week of the preseason. It's slowly but surely inching its way to what we've all been waiting for, and that's some real football. Some Justin Fields action and sooner or later, but we take what we can get, right?
Ain't that the truth? Welcome everybody. Hey, great night. It's Tuesday. You're live. You didn't get washed out over there, Mr. Johnson. So I was happy. But dude, what a show! We got some great things going on tonight. But like you said, week 2 is in the books for the preseason. All sorts of nonsense has gone on. Rumors already happening, and injuries, and list rank fractures, and sprains, and who knows what else is ailing you. But what can I say? It is Tuesday. We're here to talk fantasy, and we have a great show. I mean, we have special guests.
We do, and we're going to bring him in right off of the top. We're going to talk anything and everything we can and get all of his insight. One of the brightest minds in football, going to break it all down for us. And what do you say we bring him in right now? Does that sound like a good plan?
I second that motion, Your Honor. Let's roll.
Okay, let's bring him in.
Boo.
He is the creator of the rookie scouting portfolio and a senior staff writer for footballguys.com. It is the one, the only Matt Waldman. Welcome in, Matt. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. What an intro. So, looking forward to it. The bright mind in this room is probably the guy with all the books in the background here.
You know what? That's great. It's great. $8 worth of books. It's just a nice Amazon piece of screenery there, Mr. Waldman.
See, I've been fooled already. So there we go.
Don't let that fool. Hey, there's a book or two in here, but nonetheless, they don't fit on those shelves behind me.
Well, see, there you go. Then it's all right. I've already missed the disguise coverage in this episode. So
I guess you are the smartest man in this room right now.
The day's going to come where you're going to pull a book off of that and just throw us all off completely, thinking that this entire time you had us going.
A little sheetrock saw and never know. I might have to pull that out. That's not a bad idea, Steven. My wife might get pissed, but it's what's putting a hole in a wall? What are you going to do?
There's a rock hammer in one of those books. That's what I want to know.
I was hoping some money. Like, shoot. Hey, what are you going to do? Andy Dufresne back here, just one day at a time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, like we said, there's been a lot that's been going on here, especially in the last 24 hours. We're going to dive right into it with some of the latest news, get your insight on it, considering, again, the in-depth nature of the rookie scouting portfolio and the guy that has been the news in the NFL here for the last 24 hours, Travis Etienne, the rookie season over before it even begins for the Clemson product. Adding to the fact that the Jaguars offense has just not been all that electric in these first couple games with Urban Meyer as coach, you get all of a sudden James Robinson's value back on the up and up. Are there red flags, though, still starting to rise here for this offense? Is it something that just kind of has you a little bit concerned maybe prior to all this hype with Lawrence coming in at quarterback and maybe Laviska Shenault getting things going finally? Like, where does it stand in your mind, especially now knowing that they've lost, one of these high-powered weapons for the year?
Well, I was kind of low-key excited about this offense heading into it because as bad as the offensive line and defense were on at least, the rep of those two units, While the defense was bad, this seemed to be a team in line that if Gardner Minshew could post borderline fantasy quarterback one production 2 years ago behind an offensive line that was bad and a receiving core that wasn't as good as this one, then what would Trevor Lawrence be able to do with his wheels and his ability to buy time and that kind of work? The key, of course, is the scheme and whether the coaching staff can put a guy in good position. And you wonder if Urban Meyer, all the time, you always wonder with college coaches, are they ill-suited or ill-equipped to make the immediate transition to the NFL as play callers and as in terms of the type of offensive idea that they have. But he's not the offensive coordinator. So we can remember that they do have, even if it's Bevel, I believe. And if, Bevel, while Bevel is a proven offensive coordinator, he may not be a proven great offensive coordinator, but he is proven that he understands the game and continues to get jobs. And a lot of it really does come down to a combination of scheme and scheme fit with the players. So it wasn't like Russell Wilson was awful with Darrell Bevel in the past. It was just that he could have been a lot better if he had, and that's what the big criticism was. And at the same time, you look at Minnesota and there were criticisms about that as well in the past. So, when you look at this as a whole, the offensive skill talent's there. I mean, Laviska Shenault, as you said, having a great camp. DJ Chark had a down year last year, but he showed what he could do year two. And year two was a really huge step for a player who I thought was, promising, but had a lot to work on year one. And then you bring in Marvin Jones, who, as you guys know, in the NFC Central or NFC North, this is a consummate professional who could easily be the best receiver on that team if they continue to exploit him. So, and then James Robinson, I mean, with that offense last year, still was a guy that this is the ambivalence that I feel about this injury with Etienne, because on the one hand, I feel bad for Etienne that his season doesn't get to start and that he's a young player who you want to see him succeed in the league. You want to see every player succeed. But I really hated the fact that they drafted him in the first place, because I thought James Robinson earned that role and played extremely well behind a line that wasn't unbelievably great, And so now James Robinson gets to be the guy that he's capable of, which is a top 15 running back in fantasy circles right off the bat. So I already have him elevated just under in PPR leagues. I have him elevated just above Austin Eckler and just below David Montgomery in my top 15. Like, he's just in that 12 to 15 range. I know that everyone says, well, Meyer likes Carlos Hyde. Fine. He likes Carlos Hyde. I like pistachio ice cream. It doesn't mean that's my go-to all the time. So I mean, it's, I think it's the same thing. I think we're going to say that there's a little bit of common sense here that James Robinson balled out last year, and Darrell Bevel's going to go, well, I know he's your favorite. So if you want to have him sit next to you, in the coaches sessions, that's fine. But, I'm going with the guy who's actually going to produce for me week in and week out. And Hyde's a competent player, but I think Robinson's going to be the guy, and you can elevate him back to where he was with better offense around him. The fact now that they have a quarterback who can run is going to open up. It's
not a slide yet, but,
Yeah, you don't know how to slide yet, but he knows how to run. So if he can stay on the field, then you can even see maybe a little more upside, because now defenses have to account for the read option. So there's, just like with Justin Fields and Montgomery, and when that happens, or with, Lamar Jackson or Russell Wilson or anybody who can run like that puts defenses in a bind where they have to account for the quarterback. So you're going to see that. So I'm still quietly bullish on this offense, because the skill talent, the garbage time that this defense is going to present, that's going to force them to run the ball, to throw the ball in the second half of games. But I think in the first half of games, this team can probably stay, point for point with teams within 10 to 14 points, which allows them to run the ball and enough that I think Robinson is still a quality starter. I think you maybe lose a couple hundred yards in the passing game from checkdowns that you would get from Etienne that might elevate this a little bit more, but that's made up for the fact that, they can throw more downfield with Marvin Jones, and the offset of Jones and Chark. Somebody's got to roll coverage over to one side. So that's going to open the field for either guy where you go. And then Chenault's making that next step. So if he stays healthy, that's great there. So I only downgraded Lawrence maybe, 3 or 4 spots on my rankings to where he's just below Tua. He was in my top 10 before because of this garbage time factor. Now I have him just outside the top 12 below Matt Stafford and Tua Tagovailoa, and just above Ben Roethlisberger in that short passing game disguised as a running game. So, yeah.
Let me ask. Just go ahead, Steven.
No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
I just to follow up. One of the things they're talking about with respects to the new coaching staff. It looks like Urban Meyer kind of got like the NFL retreads to come and join his crew. He's not a play caller. So like you said, we have a new offensive coordinator. How much of an impact? Because I believe in some of the same exact players that you love and that you find extremely valuable. Do you see coaching have that much of an impact on fantasy? Players got to catch, they got to run, they got to make plays, teams are going to score. But do you really see like the Jaguars being hindered by the coaching staff?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think there's going to be somebody's going to have the correct argument to make with 1 or 2 of the 5 players that could be possible fantasy options where they get limited weekly because of coaching decisions. And, and people will point to that and say, see, that's proof. Meanwhile, there's 3 other players or 4 other players who are producing every week.
So it's a low hanging fruit. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So to me, it's like, unless to me, the real disaster is when we look at Darrell Bevell. What was wrong with Darrell Bevell? Yes, conservative play calling, but was his offensive line any good? No, he didn't. They kept having Russell Wilson got hit more times than anybody but Andrew Luck and Cam Newton, essentially, during a long period of time. Wow. And both of those guys one's out of the league and the other one's hanging on by a hit away on his shoulder. Exactly. Yeah. So which explains to you why Russell Wilson will be a Hall of Fame player. I mean, it's just, especially now that they probably will have an offense and maybe they can get that line going. But you have that. The same thing was going on with the Vikings. I believe when Bevell was there, it was when Adrian Peterson, everyone thought he was done because their offensive line sucked. And then he went to the Cardinals and their line was healthy for about 3 games. He balled out and then they got injured and then Carson Palmer got injured and then he sucked. And then everybody said he's done. And 5 years later, he's still maybe in the league by the end of the year and be a borderline top 20 back at his grand age. So what we need to learn is that if the offensive line is good enough or the quarterback's mobile enough, they'll be competent and fans will nitpick it, but we'll be fine.
Yeah. Gotcha. Cool.
So with all this quarterback talk, we've seen the early returns on how this rookie quarterback class is starting to adapt to the NFL competition, maybe not entirely first string competition, but right now in Superflex leagues and 2 quarterback leagues, there's been some significant draft capital spent, on some of these names that may not start right away. From what you've seen and kind of how you laid out who you thought were the top names in this class in 2021, who sticks out to you as these guys worth taking a risk on early that might get that playing time out of the gate and provide that value early for a fantasy team?
Sure. And the thing I'll answer is that in a Superflex league, I think all the rookies who are slated to possibly start by midseason are on the table. That includes Fields, Wilson, Lance, Lawrence, and Mac Jones. I think all of them are on the table. All of them are viable. All of them could possibly give you at least 4 to 6 games that will be enough for them to give you fantasy QB1 in 12 to 14 team league starting caliber value during a stretch of those games and maybe consecutive games like that. It just depends, but you've got to think about, well, that means what happens after that, because as I just outlined on Twitter about an hour or two ago, I just mentioned that the expectation that I always like to have with this, and this is just from experience of doing this for a while, is that I find that rookie quarterbacks right now, when they look in the preseason, it's one, because they've grasped the system pretty well that's been asked of them. They've been able to execute against their own defense in practices. And then they've gone out into the preseason and they've performed well against an opposing team. But the thing is that the opposing team hasn't disguised a lot of blitzes. They haven't played a lot of hybrid coverages between man and zone. They haven't disguised those coverages a ton. They haven't also watched the film of these quarterbacks during those practices or during college games, which they don't use college games because, again, that it's a combination of projecting what they might be able to do in the NFL versus what, things that they want to wait till the actual NFL games, because they want to see 4 to 6 games of how these quarterbacks handle different looks. And then they go, you know what? I don't think Trevor Lawrence can do these 5 things, but I'm not sure yet because it's a limited sample size. So, but our personnel might not be able to stop 3 of those things because they just don't execute against these things that well. But these 3 things, we might be able to throw at him to stop him. So we're going to try 2 of these things because this fits within our scheme. Each team is thinking that, and each team has a different set of personnel and looks. So the next 5 to 7 games, actually, it's more to be honest, the next 5 to 20 games are when they go, you know what, let's throw this in. Let's throw these 2 things in. See if that sticks. See if we can prove that this guy can't do this. And if he struggles, we'll have stopped him. If he doesn't, if he overcomes these things, well, then hopefully what we execute with our main game plan will be fine. And each team gets the chance to look at this. So when they come out of the gate, they Baker Mayfield it up and they look like they're the next world beater. Oh, they're Russell Wilson. Oh, it's Patrick Mahomes all over again. Oh, Drew Lock. Look at that Patrick Mahomes-like throw. Okay. So, and this was something I wrote about in the RSP before he even came out. Like, people are going to be like doing this, but that's fine early on. And then the defenses start making these adjustments. And they're like, okay, let's see what you can do. And if they prove that they can't do those things, or that the offense is ill-equipped to do these things with the quarterback, and now that they can't protect him like Baker Mayfield when they couldn't protect him, Baker Mayfield looked like, basically poop on a stick, because they couldn't protect him, and he's not good under pressure in certain aspects of pressure. So then when they're able to fix that and address those issues, well, Baker Mayfield starts to rebound. Drew Lock, maybe he's got Jerry Jeudy complaining about him because he can't throw the ball in the middle of the field with a level of accuracy and do the things in the timing passing game that Jeudy does so well. Yep. But Cortland Sutton's like, I'm happy because I make a living on rebounds. Yeah, I rebound. So, I'll erase some less than pinpoint plays and that kind of stuff. So you see that dynamic at play. So that's a long answer to say that expect all the quarterbacks to have ups and downs, and that's the reason why. Now, the guys that I think will be aided year one, who will have fewer downs because of the fact that defenses have a tougher time straight up defending them or throwing stuff at mobile guys, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence. I think Zach Wilson, you can expect him to have more ups and downs. Same with Mac Wilson. Mac Wilson, though, he's a little bit of a wild card because I think there's a little Peyton Manning to his game that he could wind up outsmarting people, the cerebral guy, and in that quick passing offense if he adapts. And he's the type of guy that the ego isn't an issue. Like, I think
50.
I think old Wilson has a little bit of the star Drew Lock. I will listen eventually mentality, but maybe it'll either be before he gets hurt, he gets put on his butt a few times, or it has to be pounded in his head with the possibility of adding someone who might take his job. Whereas someone like, when the fact that Josh McDaniels, who is a yeller as a coach, says that Mac Wilson is good at getting yelled at, Now, some people may think that's funny or that's a derogatory thing. I think it's a backhanded compliment, because if you're good at getting yelled at as a quarterback, that means you take criticism well and you handle it, you shake it off, and you do your job and you figure out what you need to fix. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, he did have to listen to Nick Saban for quite a few years, so it does. Yeah.
And the story with Saban was Saban's trying to implement something with his defense, and the offense keeps throwing touchdowns against the defense on a scheme. And Saban yells at Mac Jones to say, "Cut it out, man."
Cut the
and Mac Jones goes, "No, I'm going to keep throwing touchdowns until they stop me. I'm doing my job. Make them do. They got to figure out how to do their job."
I like that.
Like, yes. And so, that's what you want from your quarterback. So he has that kind of swagger, but the humility. So, but the main thing is Fields, Lawrence, and Lance. I think those are guys who have the best chance from like week 5, week 6 on to be like Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, where they may not show it all as throwers year 1. They're going to have moments where, the fans are going to be like, "Oh, they suck." And then some people are going to be like, "Oh, they're the greatest thing I've ever seen." And then, but at the same time, the rushing stats will bolster. And I think all the teams each of those teams will be like what they did with the Josh Allen plan, which was, we're playing from shotgun. You're dropping back from center. We're not designing things like with Lamar Jackson with design runs, but it's designed. And we're basically telling you, don't get too hung up if you don't get your second or your third read and you decide to run, because we don't want you to think out there, just react. We'll work on that in year 2, in year 3. We'll get you there and figure out how to get you there. Year 1, we want you playing, not thinking. And
that's thinking, more playing.
Run. Just run.
That guy up in Philly said.
Exactly. Don't think me, just give him the gas or whatever it is that Kevin Costner said to Tim Robbins in that movie.
I love it.
Yeah.
So from a running back's perspective, because the way that this class is kind of shaken up, you have Najee Harris, who's got the backfield more or less to himself in Pittsburgh. And then you have this stack up of guys in the 6th, we'll call it 6th to 9th round, Michael Carter, Javonte Williams, Trey Sermon, that are all kind of floating around there. And ultimately, it's kind of boiled down to some favoritism on who you really prefer. There really hasn't been that clear-cut guy. It's kind of shifted up and down with the way that, all the camp chatter has gone, and God knows what you can actually believe or not believe. In your mind, is there a clear front runner out of these 3 guys here that are a part of these timeshares to start, where you have Gordon in Denver, you've got a weird mix with the Jets with Tevin Coleman and apparently now Ty Johnson. I'm still trying to process that part of it. And then Trey Sermon with whoever the hell Kyle Shanahan wants to throw out there at running back. In your mind, does it feel like there's going to be a clear-cut guy that's going to kind of emerge as more of a bell cow out of those 3?
Yeah, I think so. But it's about playing the odds. And it is a difficult situation, but if I'm going to give you a definitive answer, then anyone who follows me knows it's, I'm going to say Trey Sermon. But the reason being is not just the talent, because it is the offensive fit. When you're going to look at a back, you want to think about who has the best offensive line of those 3 teams. Clearly, it's the 49ers. Yep. Who has the most diverse running game where they can disguise gap and zone, and defenses don't even know which one they're running? The 49ers. Which one has the running quarterback, or the quarterback who can run and make big plays? The 49ers. So you add all that together, and it's like you've got the talent, you've got the scheme, you've got the surrounding talent. You got to go with Sermon. And then on top of it, the reason that, Tevin Coleman is no longer there, the reason that Jerick McKinnon didn't work out, the reason that that Raheem Mostert didn't get a contract renewed, besides the fact that he's older, is that none of those guys, Matt Braid is no longer there, who looked like he could have been an all-star for a few minutes. None of them could stay healthy, which is why they drafted Trey Sermon in the 4th round, which doesn't sound early, but for them it was early. And they drafted in the 4th round. And yes, he's been banged up a little bit here and there during his career, but nothing major. And he's a back that he's already impressed Kyle Shanahan with his ability to assimilate in the passing game, pass protection, the most important things to stay on the field. So he's the way it looks right now. If I were going to say, let's use Devonta Freeman, Tevin Coleman, when Kyle Shanahan was in Atlanta as the model of what the committee's going to look like. Well, Raheem Mostert's the fastest guy. He's a very good gap runner. So toss plays, power, counter. He's excellent at that. That's the guy that they're going to have as Mr. Outside Tevin Coleman, except he's better than Tevin Coleman. So he can do a little bit more of everything than Coleman could. But Mr. Inside, Mr. Zone, gap, whatever you want to do, screen passes, get the tough yards for you. Oh, that's Trey Sermon all day, every day. So, you look at this and maybe it's a little more interchangeable because both guys are more skilled in terms of baseline talent than the Atlanta backs, in my opinion. So they're a little more interchangeable. But yeah, if Raheem Mostert gets hurt, the next guy up is Wayne Gallman. It's Wayne Gallman, who's a straight line guy with some burst, but not a lot of speed, who just finally figured out how to run in the NFL last year. Trey Sermon, to me, could be your league winner at that range, because if Mostert goes down, then Trey Sermon could give you 250, 280 touches, maybe more than that, and be the lead guy in an offense where holes are opened up, because guess who they're afraid of bootlegging out the blind, the back door is Trey Sermon, who's faster than, Trey Lance, who's faster than Trey Sermon. So it's a great dynamic, and he's just a polished runner. So he gets you the tough yards too. I love him as the pick. And Carter, listen, I think we'll see by year's end. The only issue with Carter, he's underrated, is that this offensive line isn't as complete. They've got their quarterback doesn't run nearly as well as Trey Lance. And that's the only issue. But Carter's kind of underrated too. I think he's a guy down the stretch he could surprise and have a run of games where you're like, I knew I should have taken that guy.
It is amazing to see just how much hate he's gotten just from a fantasy perspective so far. You're talking about a guy that was able to compile 1,000-yard seasons at UNC as the backup to Javonte Williams, and really just that rushing attack that the Tar Heels were able to put out. I mean, you don't think it necessarily UNC is being that prolific of a collegiate offense these days, but again, I mean, a little bit undersized, but the receiving ability alone, the value there, but the fact again that you're really trying to argue that Ty Johnson's going to try and siphon carries from Carter is something I cannot wrap my head around, regardless of what a preseason game may show.
But it comes down to this. Most people, and I'll say even a large percentage of fantasy analysts, love speed. Mm-hmm. They when they judge running backs and they evaluate, it's based on breakaway speed. Now let's break down breakaway speed. How many times does a running back in his best years, let's say Adrian Peterson, we talked about him. Yeah. How many times did he have breakaway runs in the season? Maybe 8 or 9 at best. Out of how many carries? 320, 280 to 320 carries. Okay. So you're going to judge a guy on that, or should we judge the Emmitt Smiths, Curtis Martins, Frank Gores, all the guys who didn't have top end speed? Even Barry Sanders didn't have top end speed, and what did those guys do to get close to 2,000 yards or have multiple 1,400 yard seasons? They earned 10 to 15 yards on a consistent basis where they should have earned 2 to 3. Yeah. And that's
made you miss, knocked you over, did something.
Yeah. And burst. Understanding what the hole was. Tevin Coleman needs a compass to find creases sometimes. Okay.
He's a frustrating one over the years.
He is. He's gotten better. But in Atlanta was a wide zone offense. Think about this. Atlanta's a wide zone offense. Tevin Coleman was a wide zone runner at Indiana. I got criticized by a few fantasy people because I said he wasn't a good outside zone runner. And they spent 20 minutes, I think, yelling about, what are you kidding? He was an outside zone runner at Indiana. Well, Yes. And when you watched him play Ohio State as one of many examples, when he gained 178 yards, I think 3 of those carries merited most of those 178 yards, and the rest he got stuffed. So, athletic ability seduces people with speed, but he didn't know where to run, and he should have had a lot more yards on the table than he got. And when he came to Atlanta and played outside zone and they were all excited about him, guess what Kyle Shanahan had to do? He had to start implementing gap plays to get Tevin Coleman on the field and gaining yardage, because he couldn't gain yardage on zone plays. And it took him 3 years to finally figure it out, because it's a hard transition. And so speed is a big deal that people make out of this. And so when they see Tevin Coleman, they see Ty Johnson, both guys with track athlete speed, and then you look at Michael Carter, who's got enough speed to be an NFL starting back, but just not as fast, and he's smaller. Well, those are the things that most people who don't watch film can hang their hat on, because it's obvious. And I understand that. Okay. It's obvious. But the less than obvious thing is he understands where to run the football. And he may be smaller, and teams want to be cautious right off the bat, maybe with protections. With Zach Wilson, he's not the best blocker of the group and not as experienced. Right. So they're probably like, we don't want to get Zach Wilson hurt in the first 6 games. We want to make sure that this guy figures out that part of the protections before we put him in. But once he figures that out, Tevin Coleman is going to be on another team next year or 2 years from now. Mm-hmm. And Ty Johnson will be a nice backup who can give you surprising opportunities. Production as a late round pick and after round 12,
Yeah, no, it's again, it's just funny just to watch it all kind of unfold and realize we're really having this argument, we're really having this conversation that this is
every year.
Here. It's always something, because there's all that hype that unravels and the what ifs, and no matter how much of a pipe dream it may seem. I mean, again, even like last year with James Robinson, no one expected James Robinson to do what he did, but people are now again looking for that type of out of nowhere thing, but they think they're going to get it out of this veteran that's it's not been good. It just hasn't been good.
Fantasy football, it's like this, good fantasy players year after year after year are like people who understand how to invest money, save money, budget, and learn how to manage their finances in a way where that at the end of the period, over a 10-year period, they tend to have a very good track record. But then there's people who play the lottery, and it's like everyone wants to play the lottery every once in a while, and that's fine. But if all you do is play the lottery and you don't pay attention to how you can do that other stuff, you might win big once, but as we see from the stats, most big winners lose all that money very quickly. So do you want to be the fluke fantasy player that's looking for that next magic pill, or the magic diet, the magic exercise machine, the magic way to make money? Or do you want to learn the discipline of actually doing it so that year after year after year, you may have some good years, you may have some bad years, but overall you have more good years than bad, because you've turned it into a skill, as opposed to, I got the next hot tip that's going to magically make me like a monster. And and speed is part of that. I also joke that speed is the cleavage of the NFL, in the sense that, and I know this like get a little bit on the crazy side, but I'll put it this way. But we look at it this way, everyone, man or woman, appreciates the human anatomy on some form, but in some way. Mm-hmm. And when you do that appropriately, in the appropriate setting, that's fine. Now, but there are idiots who do that at work, mm-hmm. and who look at someone's cleavage. And there are women who know that idiots do this, idiot guys do this at work, and say, you know what? I'm going to play to that, because this world isn't fair. And sometimes I can, I'll give a little hint of that, or it's a part of just wanting to look nice, and that's how they want to do. But there's a line where we all know, women and men at all, where it's about, I'm going to lead with an asset that shouldn't be an asset at work, and so the guy's like, yeah, well, you don't have a lot of experience, but I think we can give you, and we can make
Yeah.
this work where, meanwhile she's tweeting eyes up, but at the same time, and then some people might be tweeting, well, I know that the eyes won't be up, so I might as well do this, but as sad as all of that social commentary can be, in the NFL, there are a lot of GMs, there are a lot of scouts, there are a lot of coaches who literally see speed and they're like, yeah, you don't know Anthony McFarland, you don't know how to run zone. You don't know how to, you don't have good footwork. You don't know how to control your efficiency of setting up defenders, but you're fast. So we're going to draft you in the mid rounds because wow, that speed is just so enticing. It looks great. Yeah. You can't teach speed, it's like, yeah, but there's a lot of other things you're not going to be able to teach either.
Mm-hmm. So. This is how Darius Hayward-Bay becomes a first-round pick in the NFL draft.
Yes.
That was wild.
Al Davis was the madman. He was a genius in so many ways, but he was also the madman he was basically the madmen of the NFL, I think, in cleavage. Certain regards to, yeah. Now he also liked HBCU players, God bless him, and did a great job of breaking that barrier down. So there were assets with him, but there was also, him calling up Jason Campbell in the middle of a game and saying, throw against cover 2, throw the deep ball, and that
imagine
story
that
was
happening
hilarious.
in today's game. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we like to play games here. So one play game with you here before we wrap things up here. It's a fun little thing that we like to call speed run. So very simple premise. We give you a this or that. You tell us quickly which guy you'd rather prefer. We go right down the line. The theme of this speed run for this week is new faces, new places.
How many questions do you have?
We have 9.
Okay, what's the over under of how many you think I'm going to get through?
That's a great question.
I hope you get through all of them.
Okay,
I'm going to say 3.
Yep, and see, he's smart. Most of the people would think that. So I'm going to go for 9. I'm going to surprise everybody.
Let's do it.
All right.
Okay, so new faces, new places.
Go ahead, Steven. Kick it off.
Run
Let's
here,
roll.
and it's as simple as just shooting off which guy you'd rather prefer in fantasy in 2021. Carson Wentz or Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Ryan Fitzpatrick, easy, bombs away, better cast. Love it.
Okay.
Jackle,
Jonnu Smith or Gerald Everett?
Ooh, I'm going to go with Gerald Everett because I think there's better receivers and an experienced quarterback who throws the seam route to the tight end extremely well.
Kenyon Drake or James Conner?
Ooh, that's a fun one. I think probably in this respect, I'm going to go with Kenyon Drake, mainly because they like to check the ball down fairly well. And I think that he's a better big play guy, and I don't think he's as much of a health risk.
Okay. This is, TTNL family here. Justin Fields versus Trey Lance.
I have them neck and neck in my rankings, but to be honest, I have Trey Lance a healthy 25 points more in fantasy than Justin Fields. So it's Trey Lance, and it's just a better cast and a better offensive mind.
Okay.
Yeah, much better play caller, to say the least.
That's who I mean.
To my point before about the coaches, and the impact that has on fantasy,
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Nagy's going to Nagy.
Jared Cook or Hunter Henry?
Oh, Jared Cook. Jared Cook's free money in fantasy leagues. I was talking about him last week.
Steven likes him.
With Dwayne McFarland. They're playing the Saints. The Chargers are using the Saints offense. And he might be the best deep threat that they have, even though Justin Herbert made, a UNT rookie and a Chicago Bears castoff look like, world beaters in the vertical in vertical games. So yes, easily Cook.
This is a different style, but the new Chiefs offensive line versus the Chargers' new offensive line, the changes they've made and the impact that's going to have on their subsequent fantasy players?
I'm gonna cheat, and I'm going to say it's the Chiefs, mainly because I think that the players that they have are more likely to stay healthy and provide consistent stats, as opposed to Justin Jackson, who I'm a huge fan of, but can't stay healthy. Yeah. But if he has a big year, then that could be the upset.
Okay. All right, and then Corey Davis or Curtis Samuel.
Ooh, let's see.
I like both of them.
The hype's starting to get on Davis after that preseason game and Wilson locking onto him.
My projections have Davis at 2.7 fantasy points more than Curtis Samuel. So it's pretty much an even
money.
Even money.
Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. That's pretty good.
And then
last one for me, a couple of wide receivers, Will Fuller, Nelson Aguilar. I think it's an easy one, but
I think it is an easy one too. And you're gonna think I'm crazy for saying it, but I'm gonna say Nelson Aguilar. And the reason being is that I've said this on a couple of shows already. For the time that Will Fuller is healthy, he's the better receiver by far. But Will Fuller is the cicada of the NFL.
Yes, it's
long awaited to see whether he's going to get a shot to be able to play. It's going to be a sight to behold when he's on the field, and then basically his season's going to die rather quickly, and he's going to stink up your roster like roadkill.
Now you don't see, and that's it. Now, do you think Mac Jones definitely has a pretty positive impact there? I mean, I think you're not worried about the drops with Aguilar. I'm up here in New England, and that's what they talk about. The stuff going on.
Here's how I have it for Aguilar. If we make it just quick, Aguilar, I have it a 53.2% catch percentage, which isn't that great. But I have him getting 94 targets. So 94 targets, 50 receptions, 750 yards for 15 per catch, and 6 touchdowns. That leads the team, with Jacoby Myers just behind that at 644 on 60 catches. So Myers leads the team in catches, with Hunter Henry just behind that if he can stay healthy and stay healthy enough. And then Aguilar third in catches, but first in yards. So I think that's how that dynamic's going to play out. I think they're going to live with Aguilar dropping the ball.
Okay. You have another
we'll give you a layup for number 9 because I do follow your stuff, and I do know that you were very high on him. We are part of the same fan club, praying that he finally turns it around after 3 years. AJ Green or Emmanuel Sanders?
Oh, that's a fun one too, because I'm a fan of both of those guys this year. But let me see where I have them ranked just to make sure, because I don't want to misspeak. Okay. Wow. I really thought that he was a little bit higher. It's Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders is on my list, and mainly because, again, if you look at his speed and his acceleration, it was still as good. Apparently, by Next Gen Stats, it was still as good as it was pre Achilles tear, and the people throwing him the football last year couldn't put a ball on him where he could continue to keep his feet at the catch point, much less find him open all the time. And he's a better zone route runner than John Brown was. So he fits very well in the system. Though AJ Green has the upside that if AJ Green is the way they're saying he is in camp, and it's not just a Hakeem Nicks false thing in Indianapolis, then AJ Green to me was. I'm still mad that the Atlanta Falcons didn't draft AJ Green instead of Julio Jones. I'll just put it that way. As great as Julio Jones is, AJ Green could make contested catches in the facing a defender. Julio Jones still can't. Julio Jones cannot catch red zone fades. AJ Green can.
Made a living.
And he was, so as great as Julio is, if Matt Ryan can't throw those either. But so I wasn't happy about that either, I guess. But again, AJ Green could have been by far the best receiver of his era, as opposed to a distant second to Julio Jones, according to some, though I think they're closer than that.
Okay.
No, I don't know if you're much of a Marvel guy, but that the new What If series that they have, that'd be a great one. AJ Green to the Falcons and then Julio to the Bengals. Flip flopping. That'd be a fun one to see.
I've got a What If series for you. I have the What If series right now because I'm contractually obligated to mention him in everything that I do, and that's what if Chad Kelly didn't fuck up in Denver. At that Halloween party. If someone locked him in his house on Halloween
you're not allowed
night,
to do that?
he would have been starting for that team, and they wouldn't have the problems they had because, as I say a lot, quarterback's an intuitive position, and it's about knowing when to let the ball go. And that dude had it. He had it, and he arguably, when people laughed, and I still laugh. I'm just hoping one day he gets a chance, and he won't, but. It's the thing is when he said last year, I'll race any quarterback in this league. I'm faster than any quarterback in this league other than Lamar Jackson. And people made fun of him. I was like, you don't fucking get it. Like, you need to watch him against Georgia because this is a guy coming off an ACL tear and a sports hernia. And he was beating cornerbacks and safeties 50 yards down the field, had an angle on him. This guy was a dual threat before Lamar Jackson and before he got kicked out of Clemson, So, yeah. He's my wild thing of this league.
It would be fantastic to see him get his opportunity. It
won't happen, but I wish it would. I know.
In a perfect
It'd make for
world.
a great story, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, before we let you go, we do appreciate your time here. If you just want to let everybody know about the rookie scouting portfolio, the Dynasty Rankings as well, which are newer to the services and everything else that you have going on here, and where they can find all of your work.
Sure. And, first of all, the rookie scouting portfolio is both a football draft guide and with a fantasy tilt to it. I've been writing about fantasy football since 2003. I'm a senior staff writer. That's what Joe Bryant wants me to say, as a senior staff writer at footballguys.com since 2009. So I've been writing in this industry about that for a long time. The RSP gives you a very detailed process about the rookies. I literally have a over 100-page glossary of defined terms of how I look at things. I show you my entire process. If you wanted to do it yourself and were insane and decided that you wanted to do it like me, you could do that. God love you. Like my wife said, they'll steal your product. No, it's okay. Because if someone does exactly what I do, I'll shake their hand, buy them a beer, and ask them what they've arrived at and thought about this. Because
Socratic theory.
They obviously have the bug. So, this is one of the most viewed draft guides that's cross-checked by NFL scouts, according to some people I know who are recruiting coordinators at Division I schools. So along with Dane Brugler's draft guide, he and I have some popularity among, just as a cross-checking device. So you get that, but you also get a post-draft guide with it that gives you a fantasy cheat sheet for rookie drafts that's tiered, that's ranked and tiered across positions so that you can see not only that, but I also give you the difference between the ADP at that time. I don't update the spring ADP, but the ADP at that time versus my ranking. So you could find the sweet spot for where to draft somebody. So if I said, I like Nick Chubb better than Saquon Barkley, and everybody's like, well, you're a fucking idiot. And, which they did. And I said, here's why. But you don't have to draft Nick Chubb, at the top of the board, even though I think he's the best player in this draft class. You can wait until the middle of the second round, maybe in the early third round, and get him. And you can even reach a little bit, but still get value. Well, in 3 years, who's the fucker? So that's all I can say is you're basically giving it to the rest of your league between him and Patrick Mahomes. That's what happens. So I do that. I do a newsletter throughout the year. You get all that for $21.95. A percentage of that goes to an organization called Darkness to Light, which is organized to prevent sexual abuse of children through training of individuals and civic groups and government organizations. And I give a percentage of that up to $5,000 every year. Already donated that amount to them. And during a month where they had a benefactor double the donation. It was a great cause. I've been giving to that since 2011 or whenever the Paterno scandal happened. So that's been going on. And then the Dynasty Rankings, new service. I'm a rookie doing it, but I've been doing projections since 2003. So you basically get my cheat my spreadsheet that individual tabs for every team that I put on a PDF that shows you every player that I think might get some potential production, who I think might go on IR, who might be on the practice squad, and I update that multiple times during the year. I'm even going to update it for you one time before free agency or just after free agency the following year as part of the service for you. That's $24.95. It's just the straight answers. If you want explanation for why I come to the conclusions I have about rookies, get the draft guide. If you want the cheat sheet that just gives you the dirt, the like our little, our quick run thing here that we had going there, that's the Dynasty Draft Guide. You're going to pay a little more because I have to do all that work with the draft guide to arrive at those answers. So you're not getting that for cheaper. But again, it's a good service. People seem to really love what's going on with it. And like I said, I've been doing this industry for a long time. I've been I'm closing it on 600, the 600th post article that I've written for the Gut Check, which is a long-standing column I do with Football Guys that I've been writing since 2003. So, I'm not a Johnny-come-lately in this industry. I've been doing it a while. I've had my successes and failures. You can check out my rankings. I comment on every ranking I do with Football Guys, so you can see where I come from. So you'll at least know where I stand, even if you don't agree with me.
Again, one of the best deals in football and fantasy football. I mean, the rookie scouting portfolio alone, over 1,000 pages. I don't know how you do it. I really don't.
But back in 2005, when you were like, what made you make that decision to create the first RSP? I know you had the band of editors and everyone together, and back sounds like from 2003 to 5, were you just kicking around ideas and said screw it? Or
I was an operations manager in a call center. Actually, at that time, I was an operations director at the corporate level of this, but working out of this facility. And I played in a fantasy league. I was starting to write at FF Today, which is a fine site, free site, which has a beautiful looking site too for what they do. I was reading Gil Brandt talking about a certain running back who, if he was 2 inches taller and 10 pounds heavier, he would be a top 10 overall pick. And that was Brian Westbrook. And I had written about him as my first column at the Gut Check. And I thought, this is somebody that interests me about the draft, because the draft really is a lot about, it's not so much just about talent. It's about draft capital. It's about investment. It's about character. It's about team fit. There's so many other dynamics than just talent. But I want to understand talent, and I want to understand the game better. And I came from a numbers-based perspective and an analytical perspective and process-based perspective. And I thought, I love the game of football, but I want to understand the game more. So I knew a process that I had been certified in that was based on manufacturing sectors and service sectors of how do you build on improving, the process of what you do by evaluating performance. How do you improve on that? And how do you institute performance analysis processes? And I had learned this, and the company paid thousands of dollars for me to go and get certified in this. So I had become at least a semi-expert in this field from that level of how to implement this stuff. And I said, I'm going to do this for football, because if I keep doing it over a span of years, I'm going to learn how to study football. It's just because it's basically a big game of I Spy and understand how to define what you do. So I did that year one. And the first year I did it, I didn't understand what it was going to take. So I had watched maybe about 15 players by like January or February. And I was like, oh shit, like I'm not going to have anything here if I'm going to put this out by April. So I told folks, I'm like, I'm taking a week off. I got a hotel room in Athens, Georgia, just near downtown, and rented out a hotel room and brought my PC in there and my DVR. my TiVo. I bought a TiVo the year before.
Yes,
Bought my TiVo. I still have the TiVo with the worn out controller. Literally can't see any number or like arrow or anything on it. But like I brought that in and spent literally, I logged how many hours I spent. I spent 129 hours that week and literally did nothing but watch tape and take cat naps and eat takeout. And like I did that and I thought I'm either going to hate this and never do it again, or I'm going to have the bug and know this is for me. And I've got to figure out a way to do it. And at the end of that time, I was like, holy shit, I love this. Yep. Like, I love this. And so I put it out. It was probably a couple hundred pages. It was very basic. The first one is light years away from what it is now. And my first 3 years, I probably made $1,000 doing it. And total. First 3 years, and and now it's the majority of how I make my living, and I work from home.
Amazing.
So
product.
Now you're getting a penthouse suite when you go and get that hotel room to write it up, right?
I'm not.
You have to bring your sacks with you, because
this is my penthouse suite for right now. Now, though, my basement we're going to try and get my basement to look like a penthouse suite eventually. But
Shane wants you to play the sax, by the way.
How many fantasy points from Waldman, the sax player? Well, okay, we'll put it this way. If you know anything about jazz, Shane, if Bird and Coltrane are like the Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, then I would say putting me at quarterback, I am probably all right. I'm probably right now. I'll be kind to myself and say that I'm Brett Rippin, okay, which is like, I'm fundamentally sound. If you put me in a game, if you put me on stage, I'm not going to look awful, but at the same time, the high end skills are not there yet, But if you saw me in college, if you saw me from a college football perspective, you might think I'm pretty damn good. But if you put me with those other guys on that stage, you'd go, yeah, he's got a long way to go right now. That's where
we'll throw you into a Devy Sachs league and we'll call it a day.
There we go. If you put me in the college football league, you might do okay. In about 3 or 4 years, ask me that question again, and we might have a different answer. I might be up to, let's see, who can we add? I might be up to, now that's I might be up to Matt Barkley or maybe I could get to, if I'm really ambitious, maybe I can get to, an old Ben Roethlisberger, maybe I can get there in 4 to 5 years. I think that might happen. We'll see.
That's respectable. That's pretty respectable.
There we go. We might get there.
Done.
Mr.
Well, Matt, we do appreciate it very, very much and all your time here and talking to us about everything fantasy. Again, check out Matt Waldman, RSP.com. Go check out that rookie scouting portfolio, the Dynasty Rankings, and everything in between. Thank you once again, Matt. Have a great evening.
Hey, thank you, guys. This was a blast.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Have a good night.
You too.
Take care. And again, just fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff from Matt Waldman. Greatly appreciate his time. We probably could have sat here and talked to him for like another 2 hours.
I had questions just building as we were going, and it was, I was like, and people had some good questions in the chat. There was somebody who wanted to know about Tony Jones, and I was going to bring him up from the Saints, but also Marquez Callaway and see what he thought about those two gentlemen after last night.
Hell of a night last night for Marquez Callaway.
Dude, Jameis looked amazing, by the way. I mean, I was dumbfounded. I know we were talking about that earlier today.
Exactly. Talking about, the fact that, is Taysom Hill going to want to stick around? Is the LASIK thing actually going to
Thanks, Shane. I always thought it'd be Phil that'd be the guy that busts my balls, but you're supposed to be the nice one. Remember, Shane? We talked about this.
We had a deal. But yeah, again, just a fantastic game last night from Jameis. I'd say he's probably the guy. And you think back to it even too last year when the Saints were losing in the playoffs, and you saw Drew Brees on the sideline go up to Winston and say,
Yeah.
"This is your team now."
Yeah, that passing of the torch moment.
That should have been a telling sign versus this. Here's this smoke and mirrors $140 million contract for Taysom Hill that's actually like $2 million, and just say, see you later. And then Taysom Hill goes, I don't want to be here if I'm not going to start. Yeah. I don't want to be a gadget player. I'd be happy just to be in the NFL if I were him.
They were paying him very well to be a gadget player too, exactly. Before that 40 times $4 million contract, whatever it was. But dude, I don't know, but it's getting going. I love fantasy. Fantasy drafts are popping off. You had a pretty sweet one this week where you had the Royal Rumble tape, which was pretty dope. But you have any other drafts coming up?
Oh, it's now Fiverr season for me. So I do a lot of Fiverr drafts and have people pay me to draft for them. I don't know if that's a smart thing. I'm dead serious. You can check it out. Steven Johnson 4 on Fiverr.
We got to put that up in the banner, man. You got to have a little banner, a little advertising. I mean, what are we doing here?
I believe my queue is up to like 10.
I think Shane wants you to draft for him.
Oh, I bet he does.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, that's my fun really the rest of the way here.
That's awesome.
I'm excited for just football. I want things to be here that actually mean something, that don't require any type of, gossip out of a camp, or, don't count towards fantasy points or anything of the like. I just, no, I'm ready for it. I think we're all ready for it. And the fact that, again, it's 2 weeks from Sunday, we will be talking about real NFL football. I mean, if you really want to get real, 2 weeks from Thursday, but no one cares about that. Everybody cares about Sunday night, first week.
Ain't that the truth?
We got plenty coming up here in the next couple of weeks before we do kick things off here with the NFL season and everything going on at One Up Fantasy. And again, we'll have more great guests. Very, very thankful that we had Matt Waldman join us here to kind of kick off our guest lineup here for the 2021 season. And again, the mock draft last week, we're in full rev it up mode, and again, here to help you every step of the way on this 2021 fantasy journey, no matter how many leagues you might find yourself in.
It's one up that competition, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. That's what we're here to do, is one up that competition. But that's going to do it here. Again, a full Matt Waldman packed episode. I mean, honestly, I don't want to even say anything else out of my mouth, just for lack of, I think he pretty much said it all.
Yeah.
It's just even the stories about starting the RSP. It's just
I wanted to get a little inside baseball with him on that, and it was kind of nice. We could have started with that. And unfortunately, we would probably be doing gadgets and, all our other deals now, because we'd be talking forever, because to see that and to know the research that he puts in is, and he talked about the hours in the hotel room, I can only imagine the smells coming out of that thing. But, with that being said, it's amazing, dude. His mind is just, it's unreal.
Top notch. Shane brings this up. All Steven's draft money goes directly to his wife. Tell me I'm wrong. You're not wrong. There's a Disney vacation coming up, so that's exactly where it's going.
There it is.
So you win some, you lose some, but hey, it's all.
It's a win-win. Hey, you didn't lose that one.
I'm just gonna eat a lot of Mickey ice cream bars, and I'll call it a fair deal, because there's
no mosquitoes there either, so you're good.
Facts. Very, very true. Yeah. Not going to Florida. I'm good. No humidity. I'm good. It's humid enough here in Illinois, but nevertheless.
Oh, we have the humidity here out in Connecticut too, man. After that tough hurricane, tropical storm that came through, knocked over some lawn chairs. Whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Absolutely. But that's going to do it here for this edition of One Up Fantasy on Shy City Sports and the Tape Never Lies Network. We will be back next Tuesday night, same time, same place, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, with a brand new episode. Some surprises along the way, possibly, as the preseason slate will be done at that point in time. Can you believe it?
Then we have a week off of no football.
There's
I didn't want to say it, but
there's college. It's okay. It's all right. There's college. I can plug it in for a week. It'll be fine.
Yeah,
right?
There you go. Just turn the volume off,
Exactly. For Chris Jackle, I'm Steven Johnson. Thank you all again for tuning in. We will talk to you next week. But in the meantime, have a fantastic rest of your week. And even though it's not fantasy related, as always, bear down.
That's right. Bear down. Take care, everybody.